Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Today I wanted to share with you some ideas of cheap foods that you can stock up and buy now. Depending on where you live, prices certainly vary, and I've noticed the prices on these that I used to consider cheap foods have really been shooting up, as has everything else. But I still consider them a bargain. I still consider these items basics to have in your prepper pantry food storage stockpile. So I thought I would share with you some of my ideas, my favorite foods that I think would be cheap foods to stock up on. The thing to remember is there's no perfect list of foods for food storage. It should be personal. You should be thinking of it as a puzzle, a food storage puzzle. You want to put together the pieces that you enjoy eating, and so find the foods that you like, that you eat. And if these aren't the foods you eat, don't get them. Buy the ones that you do. The way to become a successful prepper is to have a pantry full of foods that you are willing to eat. I'm going to show you starting my collection with some canned food items, and the first one would be types of canned tomatoes. So I get just plain old tomatoes. I also like to get the Rotel type tomatoes that have chilies in them. Sometimes I just buy the little cans of chilies because I want more chili flavoring than just in a can of Rotel. This can is dated 2018 and this can is dated 2023. I noticed that the one that's marked 2018 is actually beginning to bulge. You can see it's no longer concave, it's convex. It's starting to bulge. And so this can would not be safe to eat at all and needs to be thrown away. I don't know if you can see clearly. Let me show you up close. Can you see clearly that the one can is bulging out? It's not concave anymore. It's starting to go convex. It's subtly different, but it's perfectly clear that it should not be used. So this one needs to go in the trash. So likely I've had this can of green chilies for 6 or 7 years, so I guess that's a little bit too long. Sometimes we buy foods and they're favorites, we're using them all the time, and maybe they fall out of favor and they get pushed to the back, or they just languish because we forget about recipes we like with those foods. So check through your foods. Always be inspecting them regularly. Look for anything suspicious. So this can needs to go in the garbage, and this one, even though it's dated 2023, it'll probably last longer, but I don't want to hold it too much longer now that I know that the cans of green chilies can become no longer safe to eat. Next, I like to stock up on a variety of beans. You can find all different kinds of black beans, red beans, pinto beans, all different kinds of beans, just plain. You can also look for varieties of beans, baked beans, refried beans. There's all different kinds of flavors. Look them over because some of them are going to be far more interesting and change up your rice and beans than just plain beans, which plain beans are great. They're so versatile. You can add them into all kinds of recipes and really bulk up your meals. Next, get cans of vegetables. Choose varieties that you like. I was in the store and I found that the green beans were on sale for 50-something cents, so I bought 12 of them because it was such a good deal. They're getting into some stores where they're over $1 a can, and so if you can find them on a bargain, that's one reason. You want to make sure that you're budgeting and setting aside a little bit of extra money for prepping so that when you find something, you can stock up because you have the money for it. Buy what you can afford. Never go into debt over prepping supplies, just like you shouldn't over anything. You want to pay for it as you go, a little at a time, and you'll have what you need. So I also like the mixed veg. I like corn, cream corn, kernel corn. Those are the vegetables that I use primarily, and so that's what I have in my food storage stockpile. So get the ones that you like. Next, I like to get cans of meat. Probably the most popular and the least expensive would be tuna and chicken. So those are nice to have on hand. When you buy some of your foods, make sure that you have an idea how you're going to use them. If you want to make a tuna casserole, then maybe you need some cream of mushroom soup, some egg noodles. If you want to make a tuna sandwich, perhaps you need some mayonnaise. And with the chicken, I like to make a white bean chicken chili, and so I always want to make sure that I have white beans and some of the salsa verde, but I can also put the chicken together in all kinds of different things. So I'm never at a loss of what to do with a can of chicken, whereas I might be with a can of tuna. So I have far more chicken because I prefer it. I noticed Spam has now gone up to $4 a can. So if Spam is something you like, you can choose maybe the luncheon loaf. It's still a huge price break over the price of Spam. But if you're not sure if you like it, just get one and take it home and try it. If you like it, you can always go back and get more. And if you don't like it, well, chalk it up to as an experience. Stock up on spices. They used to be under $1, but here in Alaska, they're more than $1. If you're in the lower 48, you can pick them up at the Dollar Tree. They're $1.25, but sometimes they're a little larger than the ones you might find at, say, Walmart. But be picking up a little at a time the spices that you have. I have a stockpile of spices that I buy the small containers and keep them in a storage stockpile so that I can always go there, get a container, open it up, and they will be fresh. I'll put a link to a video I made on what I think are the basic spices that I want to have on hand and how I'm storing them. I'll put a link to that video in case you're interested. Next, I like to have pasta on hand. Pasta is one of the dried foods that can last forever. You just need to store it in an airtight container. Don't just store it in the cardboard box or the paper wrapper because it can spill, it can get spilled on, critters can get into it, and then it's just not a good way to store food. I like to buy the long straight pasta noodles, and I can easily store them into clean canning jars. Put on the lid, it's airtight. Nothing can get into it, nothing can spill into it, nothing can chew on it. Metal and glass are just resistant to little critters and their teeth. Now, if you like a lot of pasta, maybe you like to buy pasta sauce in a can. That can last a long time, but I don't find these to be nearly as flavorful, so I like to buy the pasta sauces that are in a jar. And I particularly like the taste of the Classico. When you're done with the pasta sauce, you have an empty jar with a nice fitting lid. Now, I just bought some canning jars, and they were $16 for 12. So that makes them more than $1 a jar. So the way I look at it, when I'm buying the pasta sauce in a jar, I'm also buying the jar, which is going to be very useful to me. And the reason I like the Classico jars is because their lids are the same size as a canning jar. So you can put a clean canning jar lid and ring on here. Or you can reuse the lids if you want, like I've done with this one, because when you're storing pasta, it doesn't really matter if you don't get all of the aroma of pasta sauce out of the lid. But if you want to store something else and you're concerned about the aroma, you can put You can put a clean canning lid on there and just put it under the other ring. You don't have to buy rings and lids. You can just use the lids. Plus, you don't have to buy brand new lids. You can recycle some of your lids as long as they're not broken or dented in any way, because they're going to make an airtight seal. I use them all for dry food storage, and there are plenty of foods that can go into these jars. Everything from rice, beans, pasta, oatmeal, lentils, split peas. You can even store sugar, salt, all types of different things that need to be kept in an airtight container. And then you also have the convenience of you have that food in a reasonable size amount. We don't want everything in a 5-gallon bucket, because if you just want to make a few meals, you don't want to have to open up 50 pounds of something to make meals for a few days. You want to have some of your food stored in smaller containers, and it's easy to then take it out of your stockpile and put it into your pantry and continue to rotate your foods. We need to be aware that there are still situations that are causing disruptions to the food supply, crops that can't be grown, foods that are being banned from export, and just the tensions going on with different countries in the world that can be very disruptive to the supply chain and the actual supply of available foods throughout our world. We want to make sure that we have the things we need, we know how to use them, and a little bit at a time we can start adding to it, and then we'll have the things we need when we face any kind of a hardship or a challenging situation. Leave us a comment if you have other ideas on cheap foods that you want to add to your prepper pantry food storage stockpile. What are the foods that you want to stock up and buy now so that you'll have what you need in the future too? If you enjoyed my video, I hope you'll share it with someone else you think might like it. Please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.